Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to All Watched Over by Algorithms. I am Kristoffer Gansing, the artistic director of the festival, so I'd like to introduce not only the panel, but also the conference program of this year's Transmediale festival, since this is the first main panel in our thematic streams that we created for the conference this year. The panel as such will be further introduced by its moderator, Felix Stalder. I'd like to say some quick words about the program. It was curated by Daphne Dragona and myself, and the conference this year, in tune with the theme, looks at the different forms of impact that the intense quantification and its associated algorithmic processes has on contemporary society and culture. For those of you who were here already yesterday, we kind of dealt more in depth with this idea of the capture-all logic of society that takes its cue from the full take of mass surveillance, suggesting that this is actually symptomatic for how many processes today function in our society. And in relation to what we'll be discussing here today, it's important to note that this idea of a capture-all logic is not one based on a totalitarian control or capture. It rather reflects a new system of organization based on the datafication, quantification, and correlation of everything. And as such, it's a control that's, instead of total, rather predictive and preemptive, allowing new modes of seemingly soft regulation and control. And I say seemingly because, of course, the consequences can be all other things than soft in the end, which we also saw in the previous discussion about whistleblowing and in the context of the movie Silenced here this morning. And this is where this panel also today comes in from another angle. It discusses new forms of technologically assisted governance that presents itself as objective and effective. And this panel, All Watched Over by Algorithms, is taking place in the live stream of the conference. So we divided this conference into the streams of work, life, and play. Capture all work, capture all life, capture all play. They are here, these streams, to suggest specific social and cultural reconfigurations within capture all. For example, the intensified blurring of work and leisure, in which devices like gamification propels even play to become work. Or the drive towards self-optimization, where the subject becomes a site of data collection and constant evaluation. And with the live stream, we want to look at the consequences of a calculated and also a calculative life, asking if there are still possibilities of things that can exist in excess or in the blind spots of quantification. How can develop approaches and practices that help us to steer the relentless capture into perhaps new, more intimate, common or sustainable life worlds than perhaps life under digital capitalism now seems to entail. The streams are very much intersecting. I'd like to say that there is the keynote of the live stream that happens on Friday evening. That's tomorrow at 6, with the philosopher Byung-Chul Han speaking under the topic of the transparent body. I forgot to say that, actually, I'm sorry for the delay as you came in, which was due to a technical failure. I'd like to give the word over to Felix Stalder to introduce the specific topic of this session, as well as the panelists. Felix is a well-known name within the annals of critical net culture. Many of you might have come across him as a moderator of the list Net Time. He's someone also, to my point of view, one rare researcher that manages to convincingly combine a sociological study and perspective of digital culture with a more speculative media theory one. And he also always have a very political edge and engagement in his writings. Stalder is a professor for digital culture at the Zurich University of the Arts, author of numerous books, including in 2006 already Manuel Castells and the Theory of the Network Society, more recently the Autor am Ende der Gutenberg-Galaxis and Digital Solidarity, both in 2014. So please welcome Felix Stalder and the panelists of All Watched Over by Algorithms.
Hello, good afternoon, and also from my side, welcome to the panel All Watched Over by Algorithms. The title of the session actually refers back to the spring of 1967. Richard Brautigan, one of the rising literary voices of the new counterculture, stood at the corner of Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, handing out mimeographed copies of his new poem, all watched over by machines of loving grace, to what I can only imagine to be deeply befuddled passers-by. And can we hear the recording?
I like to think, and the sooner the better, of a cybernetic meadow where mammals and computers live together in mutually programming harmony like pure water touching clear sky. I like to think, right now please, of a cybernetic forest filled with pines and electronics where deer stroll peacefully past computers as if they were flowers with spinning blossoms. I like to think, it has to be, of a cybernetic ecology where we are free of our labors and joined back to nature, returned to our mammal brothers and sisters, and all watched over by machines of loving grace.
At the time, the poem didn't generate too much reactions. I presume for two reasons. For most of the hippie grabbing the handout leaflets, cybernetic was at best associated with their parents, a faded technocratic dream of the 1940s and 50s, connected to the same military that now fought the war in Vietnam, which galvanized the protests of the counterculture. For them, this vision was unintelligible. It made no sense. For the few who shared the vision, they saw it largely like Brautigan himself. For these, technology was not about efficiency, not about control and command, but a necessary means of creating a new society, one that would liberate people from bureaucracy and alienation, from labor, offering new vistas on a better society, a society of harmony, grace, and beauty. That dream fueled the next 4 decades of hackers, makers, and activists, from the community memory projects in the late 1960s to the Homebrew Computer Club, the Chaos Computer Club here in Germany, the free software movement, the community networks, and right up to indie media. Today, this alternative vision has lost much of its traction. Its rhetoric has largely been appropriated by capitalism, masking only thinly a new wave of exploitation and domination. And to the degree that an alternative vision is still alive, it has hardened into the libertarian fantasies of cryptocurrencies. Today, being programmed by the machine has become a ubiquitous reality, and it is increasingly being felt on the surface of everyday life. But for most of us, it does not feel like we are in a process of mutually programming each other and the machines, but the process feels much more one-sided, us being reduced to the role of the producers of raw data, mining the depths of our own existence to feed a machine that systematically obfuscates its inner workings. That machine, as we can easily see, is not creating beauty and grace, but implementing the agenda by the 1% for the 1%. So 40 years later, or 50 years later almost, we can ask, what went wrong? Was this dream of the counterculture and its vision for technology problematic from the beginning? Is there something in this game that rigs it in a way that no matter how we play it, we're already accepting the conditions of our own defeat? Peter Sunde yesterday suggested as much. So the question is there something ontologically problematic with the fusion of social and algorithmic processes? Or is it more a question of political economy, of the way that these new socio-technical potentials are realized and brought into existence? That which suggests, to paraphrase here in Berlin, Rosa von Braunheim, that it's not the algorithm that is perverse, but the situation in which it lives. So we have today a privileged situation to have 3 speakers, excellent in their own fields, that will help us address such and many other questions from their own different perspective. We'll do this the following way. Each presenter will have give a talk of about 15 minutes, and then we have time for 1 or 2 really brief follow-up questions aimed at clarification and questions of understanding. The goal is to leave us with about 20-25 minutes of time to have a broad, open discussion about the range of questions opened by the presenters. So without further ado, and to give the presenters a bit more time, I'll briefly introduce our first speaker, Matteo Pasquinelli. Matteo is a philosopher and political theorist. He wrote the book Animal Spirits, a Bestiary of the Commons, and he edited last year the anthology Algorithmic del Capitale, which in Italian I haven't read, and is the co-author of the Manifesto of Urban Cannibalism. He lectures frequently at the intersection of political philosophy, media theory, and cognitive sciences. Many of you will know him from the symposium, The Metabolism of the Social Brain, which he co-curated last year here in Berlin. So please join me in welcoming Matteo Pasquinelli.